This is the TNA Wrestling February 20th, 2025 full show results video which takes place at Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida. TNA World Champion Joe Hendry is already seating in the ring with a guitar in hand and says it is time for a concert. Hendry then says he will face anyone from any company for his championship, and then Hendry says he wrote a song about it. Hendry then mentions Sheamus not believing his eyes and his favorite moment being beating up by The Miz. Hendry also sings about it being hard to be humble when he was in the Royal Rumble. Hendry also mentions Roman Reigns throwing him out and makes a reference about John Cena and his willingness to defend his title against him. While wrapping up his first song of the encore concert, he is cut off by the Colons. Eddie Primo Colon and Orlando Epico Colon make their way down to the ring. One of them tells the fans to Google them, but then he assumed that everyone knew them. A "Where's Carlito?" chant then breaks out and the Colons then teases going after Hendry, but the lights go out. Elijah then strums his guitar and walks onto the stage to "Holy shit" chants. Elijah sings about seeing two men who were looking for a fight and then says that's why he decided to join TNA tonight. Elijah then sings about if you want to believe in Joe Hendry or walk with me you're in luck. He then asks the crowd who wants to walk with Elijah. Fans then chanting "Oh walk with Elijah" to the White Stripes melody and Elijah starts playing the riff. Elijah then mentions having a cologne clog going on and says it could use a cologne cleanse and then asks Hendry if he has his guitar ready. As Elijah enters the ring, he is cut off by the theme music of TNA Director of Authority Santino Marella. Marella mentions not one, but two big surprises to start off the night. Marella says allow him to make surprise number 3. Marella says tonight in the main event it will be Joe Hendry and Elijah versus the Colons. Elijah then says there's no reason they can't have a little concert right now. Elijah plays his guitar and then he and Hendry sings about raising some hell. We then head to the back, where Gia Miller is interviewing Leon Slater about beating JDC and earning the respect of the TNA fans. We then head to the back, where Gia Miller is interviewing the Colons. One of them speaks about how they are history and legacy and now it's TNA Wrestling. Then we saw a tag team match between the Rascals, Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, versus NXT's Tyson DuPont and Tyree Ekigwe, and the result of this match was the Rascals defeated Tyson DuPont and Tyree Ekigwe by pinfall when Wentz comes off the top rope with a Meteora, then follows it up with a Swanton bomb off the top and then Miguel makes the cover for the win. After the match, Wesley grabs a mic and challenges Miguel, Wentz and Austin to face him, Ekigwe and DuPont in a 6-man tag team match at TNA Sacrifice. First Class music then hits and they make their way out for the season premiere of the First Class Penthouse. AJ Francis then reintroduces himself as the host of the show and then introduces the blessed one KC Navarro, and behind them are a bunch of goons and ladies. Gabby from the Gabby AF podcast, the Mafiosa Valentina and the Miami 305 Street Racing Dream Girl Carolina are also with them. Francis then introduces 21-time platinum producer Reezy Renegade. We then get a video to explain who he is and they introduce some Orlando rapper with millions of streams. We then see a TikTok video to show who he is and Francis then says these guys are losers and they don't know anything but wrestling and then introduces Noel Foley. Francis then asks everyone to pull their phones out and go live in case TNA cuts the feed for what he is about to say next. Francis talks about the lack of opportunities for the TNA World Tag Team titles and says TNA management tried to pacify him by giving him his own Piper's Pit. Francis then says just like Piper didn't get credit for Hulkamania, he doesn't get credit for creating Henry Mania. Francis then talks about going to Reality of Wrestling to help Booker T with his Zilla Fatu and drawing millions of views. Francis then says he doesn't understand why he gets no respect and then introduces his special guest on the first episode. Francis then calls him a legend of TNA and some say he is phenomenal. Francis then says he has a lot of style and it is the one and only AJ Francis, and the crowd boos. Francis then fumbles his line while trying to make a comparison to AJ leaving TNA to make money in WWE, while he left WWE to make money and save TNA. First Class then says their catchphrase to end the segment. The next match happened between Lei Ying Lee versus Rosemary, and the result of this match was Lei Ying Lee defeated Rosemary by pinfall with the Thunderstruck finisher. After the match, Rosemary is down at ringside and is being checked on by the referee when Lee exited the ring. Rosemary then shoots up and sprays mist in Lee's face, then a group of referees then leads Lee to the back. We then head to the back, where we see Sami Callihan telling a cameraman to turn the camera on. Callihan then welcomes the fans to a special edition of Death Machine TV and mentions being on the hunt for Mance Warner. Callahan then catches up with Warner backstage and they begin brawling. Callahan then grabs the camera and hits Warner with it before the feed cuts out. We then see a medic tending to Laying Lee's eye following a mist from Rosemary earlier in the night, when Tessa Blanchard suddenly shows up. Blanchard says she needs the doctor to ignore Lee and help her instead. The doctor then makes it clear he is tending to Lee, but Blanchard isn't having it. Blanchard insists he ignore Lee and tend to her instead. Blanchard then tells the doctor what happens next is on him. The Northern Armory, Eric Young, Judas Icarus and Travis Williams, then make their entrance and stood on the stage. Young delivers a promo and boasts that he got rid of Josh Alexander and then calls it a celebration of his unmitigated power. Young then says Alexander started the Northern Armory, but he was too weak to hold on to it so he took it from him. Young then says Icarus and Williams were boys under Alexander's leadership. Young says they will be men and champions under his leadership, and the live crowd then gives Young the what treatment as he speaks about being the gatekeeper. Young then calls out Steve Maclin to take his position beside him, saying they can run the company forever, but Maclin doesn't come out. Young then says Maclin warned him about Alexander and knew he had to go. Young then says the business isn't black and white and about right or wrong, it's about red, blood red. We see what appears to be some kind of a meeting, where Mike Santana is sitting along with a bunch of other people in a circle sharing when Mustafa Ali shows up. Ali then takes a seat and goes on to give a big speech about how everyone in the room conquered their addictions. After Ali wraps up, everyone claps, then Ali leans into Santana's ear and whispers, "Things can change, Mike, but people like you don't." Then we saw a no disqualification match between the System's JDC versus Leon Slater. We see Slater heads back into the ring and hits his trademark running leap over the ring post splash to the floor. Both men then fight back and forth with kendo stick shots. Slater then places JDC on the table on the floor. Slater then climbs to the top rope and hits a 450 swanton on JDC through the table. In the end, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers attacks Leon, and JDC covers Slater to win the match by pinfall. After the match, Moose joins the System in the ring and it looks like a beatdown is about to begin until the Hardys' music hits and Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy make their way down to the ring. NXT champion Oba Femi's music then hits and Femi joins the Hardys and Slater in the ring as the System backs off. We then head to the back, where the System are complaining to Santino Marella about what just happened. Marella then announces Moose, Edwards and Myers against Femi and the Hardys. Tessa Blanchard then makes her way out with a microphone in hand. Blanchard talks about her interaction with the doctor earlier and says she is not cleared to wrestle. Blanchard then says the fans all follow her on social media so everyone should sit down and shut up. As Blanchard continues to talk, she is cut off by TNA Director of Authority Santino Marella. Marella tells Blanchard he didn't think she could be a bigger weasel, but then she proved him wrong. Marella then says if Blanchard doesn't wrestle next week for any reason, she is fired. TNA Knockouts World Champion Masha Slamovich then makes her way down to the ring for the next match of the night and her opponent is already in the ring. Then we saw a match between Masha Slamovich versus Mila Moore, and the result of this match was Masha Slamovich defeated Mila Moore by pinfall. After the match, Slamovich stares Blanchard down on the entrance ramp. Cora Jade then attacks Slamovich from behind. Blanchard is then shown laughing while watching what just happened. We then head to the back, where Santino Marella and Ariana Grace announce Cora Jade versus Masha Slamovich for the TNA Knockouts World Championship at TNA Sacrifice. They also announced Spitfire vs. Ash and Heather by Elegance for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship and a special concierge stipulation. Then Ryan Namath makes his entrance and announced how his big brother Nick Namath will be returning to the company in 22 days at TNA Sacrifice. In the main event of the show, we saw a match between Joe Hendry and Elijah versus the Colons, and the result of this match was Joe Hendry and Elijah defeated the Colon by pinfall after hitting a piledriver by Elijah. Joe Hendry and Elijah stands tall, and the show goes off the air. How much you would rate this week's TNA show? Let me know in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe the channel, like the video, and thanks for watching.